Today, you will hear from Hannah Matthews, the Director of Policy Planning and Research in the Division of Early Learning, and Tiara Washington, the Early Childhood Educator Pay Equity Fund Program Manager. Before handing things over to Hannah and Tiara, I'll walk through our agenda for today. We will start out today's session by sharing how the Early Childhood Educator Pay Equity Fund will work in fiscal year 2024. Next, we'll detail the opt-in process for subsidy providers, meaning child development facilities that do not participate in the subsidy program. During this portion of the meeting, we'll give an overview of the fiscal year 2024 Early Childhood Educator Pay Equity Fund application, talk about how to access the application in the Division of Early Learning licensing tool, which is also known as DELT, and have a live demo. There will be time for Q&A before closing out. Please note that this session is geared towards leaders of child development facilities that do not participate in the subsidy program. If you operate a program that participates in the subsidy program, separate information sessions were held for subsidy programs, and recordings of those sessions are available, and they were actually emailed to facilities just earlier today. Additionally, if you are an early childhood educator, we will have information sessions for individuals who are employed at child development facilities later this summer. And with that, I will pass things over to Hannah Matthews.
Great. Thank you so much, Julia, and hello to everyone who's joining us this evening. Thank you so much for being with us. In today's session, to begin, I'm going to share some background on how the Early Childhood Educator Pay Equity Fund, also referred to as the Pay Equity Fund for short, how this is going to work in fiscal year 24. Please feel free to submit questions during the presentation at any time using the Q&A feature. And as Julia said, we'll do our best to get to them. So in fiscal years 2022 and 2023, as you likely know, OSSI partnered with AidKit to distribute direct payments from the Pay Equity Fund to eligible early childhood educators. In accordance with recommendations of the Early Childhood Educator Equitable Compensation Task Force and the authorizing legislation, in fiscal year 2024, OSSI will shift and begin distributing pay equity funds directly to child development facilities to increase compensation for early educators through a child development facility payroll funding formula, also known as the CDF payroll funding formula. This means that in fiscal year 24, early childhood educators will no longer receive direct payments through AidKit. Instead, they'll receive funds as part of their regular paycheck from their employer if their employer elects to participate in the program. To receive a CDF payroll funding formula award, a child development facility must be licensed by OSSI and agree to pay eligible early childhood educators by position and degree salaries that meet or exceed the minimum salaries that OSSI has established for fiscal year 24. Facilities that opt into fiscal year 24 of the Early Childhood Educator Pay Equity Fund will receive quarterly payments calculated using that CDF payroll funding formula. Participating in the Pay Equity Fund is optional. However, facilities are highly encouraged to take part in this program to receive these resources for your staff. Child development facilities that wish to participate in the Pay Equity Fund in fiscal year 2024 must opt into the program through the process that we'll talk through in this evening's session. In June, OSSI hosted 2 information sessions focused on the CDF payroll funding formula and the minimum salary requirements that I mentioned. We encourage you to view recordings from these sessions to learn more about how the CDF payroll funding award will be calculated if you have not done so already. You may also consider reviewing the FAQ for child development facility leaders that also answers many questions that we've heard already about implementation of the Early Childhood Educator Pay Equity Fund in fiscal year 24. We'll put links to those recordings that I mentioned and the FAQ in the chat, and encourage you to please check those out. And with that overview on the fiscal year 24 program, I will now hand things over to Tiara, who will share more information about the process for providers to opt in. Tiara.
Thank you, Hannah. And hello, everyone. I am Tiara Washington, and I am the program manager for the Early Childhood Educator Pay Equity Fund. Today, I'll be walking you through the process for opting into the Pay Equity Fund in FY24. I would like to note that today's presentation is geared towards childcare providers that do not participate in the Child Care Subsidy Program, which we'll refer to as non-subsidy providers. While the opt-in process differs for subsidy and non-subsidy providers, the Early Childhood Educator Pay Equity Fund will operate the same for subsidy and non-subsidy providers. It is only the opt-in process that is different. Next slide, please. So let's walk through the opt-in process for non-subsidy facilities. Child development facilities that wish to participate in FY24 of the Early Childhood Educator Pay Equity Fund must opt into the program. The opt-in process should be completed by the person listed as the legal owner or operator of the facility. To opt in, there are two steps that a non-subsidy provider must complete. First, they must complete and submit an FY24 Early Childhood Educator Pay Equity Fund application. Following the submission of the application, the provider must complete an FY24 Early Childhood Educator Pay Equity Fund provider agreement. Please note that if you operate multiple facilities, you do not need to complete an application for each site. In the application, you can select which facilities you operate that you would like to participate in the program. Next slide, please. Alrighty, let's talk about some key submission deadlines. As Hannah noted, the CDF payroll funding formula payments will be issued quarterly. On this slide, you'll find some important deadlines for the program. To receive the first quarterly payment, facilities must have completed the opt-in/application process by 5 p.m. on September 15th, 2023, and have an agreement executed by 5 p.m. September 30th, 2023. Once a child development facility has an FY24 Early Childhood Educator Pay Equity Fund provider agreement or FY24 Early Educator Pay Equity Fund agreement addendum executed, they will automatically receive remaining FY24 quarterly CDF payroll funding formula award payments as long as they continue to meet the requirements of the program. This means that if you complete the application and have an agreement executed in time for the first quarterly payment, you do not need to submit additional applications or agreements, and you will continue to receive quarterly payments as long as you continue to meet the requirements of the program. Programs newly entering into agreements will receive payments on the next quarterly cycle following approval of the provider agreement. For example, a provider who has an agreement executed after 5 p.m. on September 30th, but before 5 p.m. on December 31st, 2023, would be eligible for a CDF payroll funding formula award starting in Q2, which is in March 2024. Providers will not receive retroactive payments for earlier quarters if the quarterly deadline is missed. Please note that application submissions are rolling. The application for FY24 will remain open until 5 p.m. on June 15th, 2024. And facilities should be mindful of the quarterly opt-in application and agreement deadlines published in this chart should you wish to participate in the program. So now we are going to go into the system, and well, first we're going to walk through the application overview before we demo the system. So next slide, please, Rachel. Okay, so the FY24 of the Early Childhood Educator Pay Equity Fund application for non-subsidy providers can be accessed via DELT, which is the Division of Early Learning Licensing Tool, and the application has 4 sections. The first section is review and confirm demographic information. The second section is read and acknowledged affirmations. Third section is to submit required documentation. And the fourth section is to identify the facility or facilities that wish to participate in the program. Let's go through what the supporting documentation is. So I'd like to highlight the 3 pieces of supporting documentation that must be submitted as part of the application. You will need an IRS Employer Identification Number or EIN Confirmation Letter, an IRS Form W-9, and DIFS, the District Integrated Financial System, also referred to as DIFS, Supplier Approval Documentation. We'll share more information on where to find these documents on the following slides. And we highly encourage providers to collect and complete these documents as soon as possible. All right, first, the IRS EIN Confirmation Letter. Providers must submit a copy of this EIN confirmation letter as part of their application process. If you previously applied for and received an EIN for your business, but have since misplaced it, you can request your EIN from the IRS Business and Specialty Tax Line by calling the number listed here on the screen Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And that number is 1-800-829-4933. Second, the IRS W-9 form. We will drop a link in the chat to where you can find that form. It is also located on the IRS website, and you complete this form in order to provide your correct taxpayer identification number. And lastly, the DIFS, District Integrated Financial System, aka DIFS, supplier approval documentation. To participate in the FY24 Early Childhood Educator Pay Equity Fund, the provider must be registered in DIFS, which is the financial system for the district government managed by the DC Office of the Chief Financial Officer, also known as OCFO. We have, we'll also drop a link in the chat to where you can find a step-by-step guide for registering in DIFS. If you have questions about registering in DIFS, please contact OCFO. They can be reached via email at suppliers@dc.gov or via phone at 202-442-6870, Monday through Friday between the hours of 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. We will drop this information in the chat. After a provider has successfully registered in DIFS, you will receive an approval email from DIFS or OCFO. Please save a copy of the approval notification email, as this will need to be submitted as proof of supplier registration. Please note, if you are already registered in DIFS, you do not need to create a new account. Please contact OCFO to request proof that you are registered in DIFS. If you are unsure if you already have a DIFS account, please contact OCFO. Accessing the application in DELT. Before we get into today's demo, I'd like to first highlight an important step providers need to take to access the application. The application is to be completed by the person listed as the legal owner or operator of the facility in DELT. Please note that in some cases, the person listed as the legal owner or operator of the facility is different from the contact listed as the facility contact in DELT. The contact information for the legal owner or operator is found in the legal ownership operator information section in DEL. If you need to change or update this information for the legal owner / operator, please contact your assigned licensing specialist. The legal owner of each facility in DEL was sent an email from QuickBase with the link that must be clicked to activate the provider profile. And that was sent during the week of July 17th. Next slide, please. Alrighty, accessing the application. If you are the legal owner operator of the facility, please look for an email sent from notify@quickbase.com with the subject line invitation to the application. The body of the email will look like the image to the right. Please click Go to this app in QuickBase in order to gain access to the application. If you are listed as a legal owner or operator and are unable to locate the email, please check your spam or junk folder. If the email is not in your spam or junk folder, please send us an email at ossie.ecepayequity@dc.gov, and we will work to resolve the issue. All right, now we are going to walk through and demo the application and messaging feature. I am not able to start my screen share. My screen share person, can you share the screen with me? Okay.
You should have ability now, Tiara.
Thank you. All righty. So when you access the application in DEL, the first page that you will see is the home page. And on this home page, you will be able to read an overview of fiscal year 2024 of the Early Childhood Educator Pay Equity Fund, as well as find links to some key documents that we highly encourage providers to read through. You will also find the documents that are required in order to complete the application process that we just went through. So the IRS Form W-9, the IRS Employer Identification Number, Confirmation Letter, and the DIFS Supplier Approval Documentation. In addition to those three documents, you will have to read through and certify that you received some affirmations that we will walk through on the next page. So in order to start or opt into Pay Equity and begin the application process, there is a blue button down at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, and you click on this button in order to start to be brought to the next page. So 1 second, this is. Okay, so once you, I want to take a few steps back because I think it skipped a step. So the first page you should see is this dashboard for non-subsidy providers. So you will log in, see two buttons here at the bottom of the screen. The left button is the Pay Equity button, which will take you into the application. And on the right-hand side, you will see a message button that you will be able to use in order to send messages that we will demo after we go into the application. So once you click on this Pay Equity button, you will then go to the this home page that I just showed you, where you can read about the program, also see what documents you're going to need to complete as part of the application process. So now you will click to participate in Pay Equity. And on this page, you should be able to see a button where you can edit the application. So I am not sure why it's not showing here. So give me a few seconds to troubleshoot and see what is going on. Let me try.
Sarah, while we're looking into that, I think now would be a good opportunity to launch some of the polls that we're looking into for today. So I am going to activate 2 polls for the group for today. We have 2 questions. So the first question is to please tell us what language you are attending today's session in. And the choices there are English, Spanish, or Amharic. And our other question we have is, does your facility plan to participate in fiscal year 24 of the Early Childhood Educator Pay Equity Fund? And we have yes, no, and unsure. So we'll give folks a little bit of time to answer those polls. We'll give folks another 30 seconds or so to give their responses. We do encourage you to respond, especially to our language question that helps us inform services for our future meetings. Alrighty, thank you everyone for sharing your feedback. Tiara, are we able to go back to screen sharing?
We are. I am going to have to improvise, but I believe we can still walk through.
Great.
So let me share. Alrighty. So as I mentioned, once you are able to go into the application, you will see a pencil icon and an eyeball sort of icon. And I'm not able to show you that right now at the moment due to some technical difficulties, but at the end of the presentation, if I'm able to get the test site to work, I will walk you guys back through it and show you. But for the purposes of walking through the application, when you click on the pencil icon, you'll be brought to this next page where you will be able to see all of your demographic information. So you should see that information in this demographic section. And then the next section that you will see is the affirmation. So this is where you will click on each highlighted affirmation link, read the attachment, and acknowledge that you have read through and received the affirmation over here on this right-hand side. So once you click on each of the affirmations, you come over to this right-hand side of the screen, select each of these checkboxes to certify that you read through and received them, and then you can keep moving through to the next section. So the next section is where you will find the supporting documentation. So in your dashboard, you will see a link to be able to upload each of these documents. You are not able to see that here because we are not in the test site. We are in my actual site. So you will have an option here where you can choose to select and upload a file. So you will upload your IRS employer identification number, confirmation letter, the IRS W-9 form, and the DIFS supplier approval documentation. The next section is the facility information. So this is where you will be able to, if you operate multiple facilities, be able to select which facility you would like to participate in FY24 of the Early Childhood Educator Pay Equity Fund. So there will be a checkbox here, as well as some your additional facilities if you operate more than one. And you will let us know which facilities you are interested in opting into FY24 by clicking on the box that you will see here in this field. So I want to call out that you will not see these three buttons at the bottom of the screen. This is what I see on my side. What you will see is a blue button on the left-hand side that says submit, a green button right here in the middle that says save, and then a button over on the right-hand side that says cancel. So if you need more time to gather the documents required to complete the application process, or you won't be able to complete the application in one sitting, we highly encourage you to save. And when you are ready to submit that application, you will be able to see a blue button at the bottom of your screen that says submit. So that is how you complete the application process. Now I'm going to walk you through how to use the messaging feature. I am going to stop screen sharing for just a second in order to make sure that I'm not sharing any private information. So give me 1 second to stop my screen share and all this other stuff. Oh, goodness. Okay, here we go. Okay, we are good to go. So once you close out and cancel out of the application, you will go back to your dashboard, which will look different than this one that you're seeing here, but you will still have the same two bottoms at the bottom of the page. The left-hand button for pay equity, which we just walked through the application process, and then the message feature button on the right-hand side. So if you would like to send a message to the pay equity team, you can click on this message button and it will bring you into a new page where you can create a new message. So on this page is where you can select the facility. You can type the subject, type the body of your message, whether it's a question, concern, and then when you click save and close, that message will come directly to the pay equity team, and we will respond to you via messages. So if you have questions, need assistance completing the application, run into a challenge, please utilize this message feature in order to let us know that you need some assistance. We will be monitoring the emails that are coming in or the messages that are coming in and responding to providers directly within the application. And that is the demo for how to complete the FY24 Early Childhood Educator Pay Equity Fund application. And as I mentioned, if I can get the test site up and running, I will show you all the buttons that we were not able to see from viewing in my view. So I am going to hand it back over so we can continue.
Thank you, Tiara. We'll now move into the Q&A portion of tonight's session. As we noted at the top, we'll be using the Q&A feature. So please do submit your questions using that function in Zoom. Let's see. So our first question, this one is for Hannah. About how the minimum salaries work. So this question is, so if someone pays their staff the current minimum wage, will OSSI provide the difference to meet the minimum salary? And when do facilities need to start meeting the minimum salary requirement?
Sure. So a couple of answers there. So the first is regarding the minimum salaries. So as you've all seen, and we've included the link in the chat, we have published what the required minimum either hourly or annual salary will be for teachers based on their role as a teacher or assistant teacher and the highest credential that they have earned. We will be calculating the CDF payroll formula fund based on the number of eligible educators in those roles with those credentials and providing a wage supplement for each teacher. Those wage supplements are based on a district-wide average of current salaries. So we won't be providing a wage supplement to the exact amount that you're paying your teachers now, but you will receive an amount. And you can see that wage supplement if you look through the earlier presentations and slide decks and sessions that we've had on the payroll funding formula. So that's the first answer. Yes, OSSI will be providing resources to help you add on to what you currently pay your teachers to be able to meet those minimum salaries. The second part of the question in terms of the timing, because we will be providing the CDF payroll formula awards in December, we will not require facilities to meet the minimum salary requirements until after they've received that first Q1 payment. So beginning in the second quarter of fiscal year 24 is when we'll require facilities to begin to be paying those salaries. So we understand that facilities don't necessarily have those resources in advance of receiving the awards, and we will not hold them accountable for meeting the salary requirements until after the first payment is received.
Thank you. Another question. So I guess this one's just to clarify, who exactly is receiving the money from OSSI? You know, in fiscal year 22 and 23, AidKit dispersed direct payments to educators, but in fiscal year 24, can you describe that change a bit?
Great. So great question. So that's right. So with fiscal year 24, with the CDF payroll funding formula awards going to the facility is going to get additional resources. So this is like a new revenue stream for you as a facility operator. In exchange, you are required to increase the salaries of your eligible educators, the teachers and assistant teachers. So the educators will no longer receive lump sum payments or payments from Pay Equity Fund directly. And we are saying that in order to meet those minimum salary requirements, it must be through regular paychecks, regular pay. So again, as a facility owner, you're not giving quarterly lump sum payments to the educators. You're raising the salaries going forward once those funds have been received. So the money goes to the facility. The facility in exchange has additional revenue to pay higher salaries.
Thank you, Hannah. Our next question is one for Tiara, and this is about completing the opt-in process. So what would the process for facilities that have multiple locations, but they have different EINs, which is an employer identification number, be? Do those facilities need to submit separate applications if they have different EINs?
Hi, sorry. If a provider is operating multiple facilities and all of the facilities have a different EIN number, will they need to complete, I just want to make sure I'm understanding the question correctly. Will they need to complete separate applications?
Yes.
In order to, this is a question I probably will defer because I'm not sure. I believe that if you do have different EIN numbers, you will probably need to complete a separate application in order to be able to receive the CDF payroll funding formula award, because as part of the application process, you do have to register each facility as a approved DIFS supplier. And that if you operate multiple facilities with different EIN numbers, you will need to complete an application because they will operate or function as separate facilities, if that makes sense.
Thank you. And if folks have follow-up questions, you can always email aussie.ecepayequity@dc.gov, and we'll follow up with you. I will continue to encourage folks to use that Q&A feature in the chat. Another question, we've heard this one in our previous session. Can Aussie share the fiscal year 24 Early Childhood Educator Pay Equity Fund agreement so providers are able to review it in advance?
Yes, so we will be posting very shortly a sample agreement on our website. First, it will be available in English. We are working on getting the translated versions available as well. I believe we'll be sending a notice out to providers when that sample is available. So that way you can take a look at the agreement before working on your own.
Thank you. Another question. If an owner operator submits an application, has a signed agreement, do they need to continue to do that each quarter?
No. So as we walk through in the presentation, once you go through and complete the application, as well as the application, the agreement, you will not need to complete an application or agreement in FY24 in order to receive any of the CDF payroll funding formula awards. So you will complete the application once, as well as the agreement once in FY24, and that will make you eligible to receive any the remaining payments, quarterly payments in FY24.
Let's see, another question. Does this information all apply to homes and expanded homes?
Yes, this applies to homes, expanded homes, and centers.
Another question, how can the application be found in DELT? Tiara, I think this might be someone who's not seeing that button in DELT. If you want to walk through what they might need to do to make it appear or activate it in their profile.
Okay, so if you are the legal operator owner, you should have received an email from notify@quickbase.com. In that email, there is going to be a button for you to click to go to activate the application within DELT. And once you click on that button, it will take you into DELT, where you will find the landing page for the application that we just demoed. If you are not, if you did not receive that email and you are the legal owner operator, please check your spam junk folder. If it's not there, please send us an email at aussie.ecepayequity@dc.gov, and we can help you troubleshoot how to find that email or access the application if you are the legal owner operator.
That leads well into our next question. If people need technical support, what should they do? Is there some place they can reach out?
Yes, so you can reach out to us two ways. The first way is through the message feature in the application. The second way is through our email inbox, ossi.ecepayequity@dc.gov, and we will respond and support you with your question or concern.
Thank you. Again, I'll just remind folks to please use the Q&A for their questions. Our next question is around the timing of payments. So Hannah, maybe you can address this one. When will funds be distributed?
Yes, and maybe we could put that slide back up that shows the timelines as well. So there's a timeline to opt in to each quarter. Again, once you've opted in to a quarter, you will remain in the program for the remainder of fiscal year 24, but there will be multiple chances to opt in. And you can see in the far right column there, we have the payment distribution months for each of the quarters. So the very first quarterly award payment will come to facilities in December. Remember, again, you will not be required to raise those minimum salary, to raise those salaries of your employees until after receiving that December payment. And then you can expect to receive additional payments in March, June, and September. One more thing that I'll note is that we will recalculate the CDF payroll funding formula award each quarter. And that's because we know that there are changes, right? You may hire new staff. And so we want to make sure that your award is updated to reflect new staff. Your staff may complete higher degrees and be entitled to a higher minimum salary. So again, we want to update the payroll funding formula to account for those changes. So each quarter we will run the formula award again, and you will receive the payment on the dates outlined here. So again, I really encourage folks to make sure that they haven't seen them already to look at that information we shared from the earlier information sessions that really give examples of how the payroll funding formula will work for your own facility.
Thank you, Hannah. And another question we've been getting is around taxes. Could you talk a little bit to who is responsible for paying taxes on these funds?
Sure. So because these funds will be going to the facility as an additional source of revenue, the educators will not pay taxes directly on them. They are going to receive these funds, remember, as regular pay. So when you raise the pay, we understand that mandatory payroll taxes will increase. For that reason, we have included an administrative enhancement in the funding formula. So in addition to the wage supplement that you're getting, you will also get a 15% administrative enhancement to cover those payroll taxes and any other expenses that you may have for participating in the program. So you as employers will be responsible for payroll taxes. We are also encouraging educators to talk to any tax advisors that they can, whether or not the increased pay would put them in a different tax bracket that they might need to be aware of.
Thank you, Hannah. With that, I think that we will move to closing out today's session. Thank you, everyone who has joined today and for responding to our polls earlier. As we close, I'd like to remind everyone about the submission deadlines for fiscal year 2024 of the Early Childhood Educator Pay Equity Fund, which can be found on this slide. Please remember that the deadline to complete and submit an application in DELT to be eligible to receive a CDF payroll funding formula award payment for Q1 of fiscal year 24 is at 5 p.m. on Friday, September 15th. And the deadline to have an executed agreement is at 5 p.m. on September 30th. And that is for the facility to receive a CDF payroll funding formula award for Q1. So please remember that there are two pieces to opting in. Thank you everyone again for joining today's session. For more information on the fiscal year 2024 Early Childhood Educator Pay Equity Fund, please visit the OSSI website. We'll drop a link to that webpage in the chat. And you can also find supplemental materials on that page, such as the CDF payroll funding formula, minimum salaries and salary schedule, an FAQ and guide for completing the FY24 application for non-subsidy providers, as well as recordings from those sessions that we held back in June that walk through the CDF payroll funding formula. Finally, if you have questions about fiscal year 24 of the Early Childhood Educator Pay Equity Fund or need support completing the application, please do email ossi.ecepayequity@dc.gov for support. When you do, we will follow up with a member of the support team to help provide you with technical assistance. Thank you again for attending today's session. We will be sharing a recording of this session as well as the one that was held last Thursday later this week with facility leaders. And please be on the lookout for additional updates in the coming days and weeks ahead. Thank you, everyone.